What would you do if the world phoned you in the middle of your sentence? If the ringtone sliced through studio silence? If a single vibration dared you to prove you were still human? Hold that thought. Before we roll the tape, tap the like button, punch subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you were the last time news truly stopped your heart. Your voice matters here, and the story we're about to enter is bigger than any headline scrolling across the bottom of your screen. The set glows like it has something to hide, LED banks suspended overhead, a glass desk polished to mirror finish, every corner engineered to keep emotion at bay. Across from the host panel sits Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, posture straight, suit immaculate, tone measured, answering yet another question about soybean incentives in rural America. She has given this answer before, can almost recite the statistics backward, yet she refuses autopilot. Every syllable lands with practiced conviction. Because food on someone's table is never just a talking point to her. Cameras pan, lights breathe, the control room counts frames. Routine. Predictable, safe, then the buzz. A sudden staccato rattle against tempered glass. Her phone, set to vibrate, trembles like a trapped sparrow. Protocol says ignore it. Optics demand composure. But in the half-second where instincts outrun training, Jasmine's eyes flick to the screen and widen. Unknown international number. West African country code. A name she recognizes, Ibrahim Traoré. The host's teleprompter keeps scrolling, but words turn to static in Jasmine's ears. She lifts a finger, wait, and against. Every rule of crisis communication presses accept. The earpiece audience can't hear anything, yet the change in her face tells the story first. Brows knitting, shoulders tightening, oxygen suddenly heavier. President Traoré, she whispers, microphone hot, nation listening. A pause blooms only. A breath long, but long enough for millions to lean closer to their screens. The control room director signals go to commercial, yet Jasmine raises her free hand, let it roll. Her other hand grips the phone so fiercely the glass desk vibrates. His words spill through tinny speaker holes and into her bloodstream. Bombing. School in Kaya. Children. One syllable escapes her lips, children, and it is not speech. It is a fracture. A single tear breaks the dam, tracing the contour of perfectly applied makeup before surrendering to gravity. The anchor beside her goes mute, fingers hovering uselessly above cue cards. No graphics package, no orchestral sting, just live rawness, the sort networks usually cut, the kind they can't copyright. Jasmine inhales, a tremor fluttering in her chest, and the studio seems to breathe with her. She does not apologize. She does not pose. She feels, and in doing so she ignites something that numbers and talking points never could, the collective heart of a nation suddenly remembering the cost of distance. 30 seconds. One phone call. A single picked up vibration that unspools. Worlds of grief. When the line finally goes dead, the broadcast is forever altered, and so, perhaps are we. Stay with us. This is only the beginning. And while you're here, drop a comment. Do leaders grow weaker or stronger when they dare to break on camera? Your answer might just steer the conversation that follows. What does empathy look like when the cameras aren't watching? If Chapter 1 cracked the studio fad, Chapter 2 peels back the rehearsed smile, walks down an unmarked alley, and pulls up a wooden chair at a corner CAF where daylight pulls like quiet confession. Allow the steam from the coffee to fog the screen for a moment. Lean in and listen, because this is the conversation that shaped the tear you witnessed live. 3 weeks before the studio phone rang, Jasmine Crockett was already awake long before dawn, the weight of legislative calendars corralling her thoughts. Yet here she is now, past PM, in Clara's on C Street, a place so stubbornly analog that the espresso machine wheezes like an old train. No aides, no security detail, no PR-vetted reporters. Just a flock of mismatched tables and the low thrum of a city exhaling after another relentless news cycle. She arrives early habit and chooses a table beneath a flickering Edison bulb. She tapes a sticky note inside her legal pad. Faso. Aid pathways? Ask about volunteers. Lines blur under the yellow light. The front door chimes. A man enters, shoulders squared by the sort of responsibility that never clocks out. Ibrahim Traoré, interim president, field medic turned head of state, a name most of Washington still files under, developing situations. His suit jacket hangs looser than protocol would advise, a silent testimony to sleepless nights. No handshake dance, no performative pleasantries. They sit, they breathe, Then Ibrahim unfolds the crisis one vignette at a time, desks splintered by artillery, playgrounds echoing with evacuation sirens, parents who still send children to school because routine is an act of defiance. He does not traffic in abstractions. He carries photographs dog-eared, dust-smudged, wholly. Jasmine studies them in the lamplight. A boy gripping a soccer ball like a life raft. A chalkboard webbed with shrapnel. A nurse in scrubs, smile unfaded. Serena Langston, Baltimore native, age 27. She wrote a letter 2 days before she died. Ibrahim slides the envelope across the table. Ivory stock, ink slanted and sure, if the world won't watch, then we'll just have to be the light ourselves. 8 lines in total, each one landing like a drumbeat beneath Jasmine's ribs. She rereads the salutation, Dear President Traoré, and feels time stretch, a taut thread connecting streets of Kaya to hallways of Congress. Tell me what matters most, she says finally. Visibility, he answers, voice coarse from speaking truths too often ignored. Call the grief by its name. Make it impossible to look away. The CAF's lone barista begins stacking chairs. Night outside has thickened into the kind that erases monuments, leaving only street lamps and conscience. Jasmine closes her notebook. No signature deals, no arm-twisting diplomacy tonight, just a vow forged in low light. I'll bring their names into the record. Your children will not be background noise. They part with a quiet nod, and the city swallows their silhouettes. Yet the promise follows her like an ache. Back on Capitol Hill, empathy must navigate labyrinths of procedure. Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, line item 7, West African Stability. Jasmine raises Serena's name. Senators tap phones under the table. Budget analysts redirect to inflation charts. 3 times she speaks. 3 times the words hang in fluorescent air and drop like feathers no one bothers to catch. Later, she drafts a floor speech, visibility, loss, the moral math of distance, but political emergences elbow it off the docket. The document lingers. In her laptop, cursor blinking like a pulse, she refuses to pronounce dead. What keeps her trying? Maybe the photo of a chalk-stained smile. Maybe the letter sealed with hope. Maybe Ibrahim's parting line echoing down marble corridors, your voice travels farther than you think. Whatever the reason, a congresswoman keeps whispering a story most of Washington has never heard until a phone rings on live TV and whispers turn into thunder. Remember this booth-like promise. It is the fuse that sparks the broadcast breakdown you've already seen. And as you absorb the quiet courage born here, ask yourself, whose invisible grief would you bring to the table if someone finally slid the mic your way? The timestamp on the Raw studio feed reads 11:07 am by 11:15. A junior producer, palm still shaking, airdrops the footage to her private drive just in case. At 11:26, a 20-second segment, no chyron, no music, finds its way to a reporter's Slack channel labeled spicy. No one knows exactly who hits upload first, but by noon the moment lands on X, you still call it Twitter, and the algorithm, always hungry for truth wrapped in shock, bares its teeth. The clip garners 18,000 views. Comments are one-liners. Wait, what did she hear? Did she just cry? No hashtags yet, just curiosity. A blue-check pundit retweets with, is this performative or powerful? You decide. Views triple. Reaction splits like tempered glass. Right-wing radio jocks cue laugh tracks. Progressive bloggers whisper finally. Memes bloom and wilt in the same hour. Someone loops her whisper children over a low FI beat. It hurts, but it spreads. Night shift editors smell ratings. Cable banners load a headline while anchors are still in makeup. Congresswoman breaks down on live TV strength or weakness. Panelists prepare decade-old talking points about decorum. Never mind that grief keeps rewriting the script. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett does nothing. No tweet, no statement, no hastily scheduled press scrum. Her phone vibrates itself dizzy on a kitchen counter while she sits at her dining room table. Serena Langston's letter unfolded like a map of a country called Perspective. She reads it again, and again, and again. The silence becomes its own. Broadcast, day 2 dawns, and the internet insatiable spins fresh takes. A teacher in Ohio uploads a video from her classroom. See this empty desk? I cried here last year when we lost Jamal. Leaders should never apologize for tears. 3 million views. A combat veteran in Texas stitches the clip. If war taught me anything, it's that the day we stop mourning kids is the day we lose the war for our souls. 5 million. An immigrant mother in Queens posts a selfie. Eyes red, that single tear sounded like my homeland's anthem. 10 million, the discourse tilts. Analysts recalibrate. Advertisers hover. Something about that lone, unvarnished moment is proving stubbornly unmonetizable. Grief doesn't pause for pre-roll ads. Then, precisely 48 hours and 7 minutes after the broadcast rupture, Jasmine Ray enters the chat without speaking a word. She uploads a photograph to Instagram, her palm, lines open like scripture, cradling a silver bracelet that spells HOPE in nickel-sized charms. No filters. Caption: I was going to delete the video, then I watched it again and realized the tear means I'm still human. I hope we all are. That's it. No hashtags. No emoji, just 25 plain words. It detonates softer than dynamite, yet the shockwave is wider. Shares rocket past 500,000 before sunrise. Comments surge in languages auto-translated by phones. That cannot parse the weight behind syllables. Nurses on graveyard shifts type with you. Teenagers who've lost classmates to bullets type teach the grown-ups. Trauma counselors type thank you for validating my entire profession. The algorithm tries to sort grief into top, latest, relevant, and fails beautifully. Somewhere, a data center engineer notices an unusual pattern. User: dwell time on this post is triple average. Because people aren't skimming, they're breathing. And Jasmine? She's on her living room floor, knees pulled to chest, scrolling slowly, replying one heart, one line, one I see you at a time. Each response a stitch, each username another square, and an expanding quilt of strangers refusing numbness, because when a single tear meets a global feed, it can do more than go viral, it can go vital. Milwaukee wakes under a drizzle is fine as radio static. On 29th and Locust, the Lighthouse Community Center looks exactly as it did yesterday. Faded siding, sticky front door, bulletin board sagging under overlapping flyers, coat drive, free flu shots, Tuesday night bingo. But when a city aches for connection, the most unassuming rooms become cathedrals. Inside, rows of folding chairs wait like question marks. No press risers, no boom MIC forest, just a thrift store podium with scratches that map 100 small town. Testimonies. Jasmine Crockett slips in through the side entrance, umbrella still dripping, heart hammering louder than the rain gutters. She isn't here as Congresswoman any more than Rosa Parks was merely passenger. She's here as proof that empathy can occupy elected office without paying rent to cynicism. The crowd is an unlikely quilt, a science teacher who drove 5 hours after night shift, a Vietnam vet with unit patches sewn to a denim vest, 3. Teenage poets clutching spiral notebooks like passports, a mother from Caracas holding a toddler who keeps patting her necklace. Cameras? 2 smartphones, held chest-high by volunteers whose hands tremble not from starstruck nerves, but because they sense the weight of recording something that matters. Jasmine exhales, steps forward, taps the MIC. It doesn't squeal, it sighs. Her voice starts low, conversational, every syllable deliberate. I wasn't supposed to pick up that call. I wasn't supposed to cry. I wasn't supposed to care about a bombed classroom 1,000 miles away. But I did, and I don't regret it. She lets the silence breathe a full 5 seconds, long enough for the room to sync its pulse. Then 6 words carved carefully, each one a handhold for a climbing nation. Grief is not Unpatriotic. The air ripples. Nobody claps, yet they're busy absorbing, tasting the sentence like communion. When applause finally detonates, it isn't polite. It's elemental, a rumble that rattles fluorescent tubes overhead and startles a toddler into delighted squeals. Jasmine continues, weaving Serena Langston's letter into the speech, the line about being the light ourselves. She names villages nobody at CNN can pronounce, lists figures that should shame the richest legislature on earth, and then pivots, fast and fierce. Feelings are not a flaw in leadership. They are the fuse. If we don't light it, nothing changes. Her staffer in the wings cues a small projector. A slide appears, a lantern icon layered over a classroom silhouette. She announces the Lantern Fund, a joint initiative with President Traoré, channeling scholarships, trauma healing programs, and teacher stipends to conflict zones. The first dollars come from her own salary, 15% until January. Gasps, then another wave of applause, ragged but unstoppable. But the real moment isn't financial, it's relational. Jasmine invites 2 Livestream screens to the stage. On the left, a classroom in Kaya, Burkina Faso, chipped walls, newly painted sunflower yellow. On the right, Madison West High, Wisconsin, students wearing sweatshirts and headphones. Time zones collapse. A 12-year-old girl named Sierra, the one who held the sign "Thank you for crying for us," asks, "What does hope feel like?" A boy in Madison answers, "Like someone finally answered my text." The room inhales as if lungs could hug. Jasmine steps back, tears bright but steady this time, and she lets them see. Because here, tears are not crisis PR. They are irrigation watering a generation brave enough to grow empathy in public. She closes with no anthem, just a question: will you keep the lantern lit when my battery runs low? We're passing that question to you now. If you believe compassion scales faster than hate, drop our emoji in the comments. And don't just follow this channel, follow through. The next chapter shows what happens when screens dim and grassroots glow. There's a peculiar hush inside Representative Jasmine Crockett's office these days, not the sterile quiet of bureaucracy, but the hush of a greenhouse moments before new shoots appear. Sunlight slants through Venetian blinds, striping the carpet like staff lines on sheet music. On every surface lie envelopes, drawings, email printouts, thousands of unscripted testimonials that a single tear can reroute national conversation. Jasmine sets aside policy memos and lifts a padded envelope post marked Kaya, Burkina Faso. Inside is a flash drive and origami lantern meticulously folded from old arithmetic homework. She plugs the drive into her laptop. The screen flickers and a courtyard materializes, repainted walls, desks bright as sunrise. Sierra 12, braids ribboned with cloth the color of iron-rich soil, faces the camera flanked by classmates. "Madam Jasmine," she says, English careful but confident, "you show the world our tears are seeds. We promise to water them." The children raise handmade paper lanterns. Each one bears a single English word: hope, courage, story, light, and then they laugh, the sort of laugh that vibrates right through tempered glass politics. Hours later, Jasmine spreads out her latest mail haul like tarot cards. A Nebraska farmer thanks her for making grief an acceptable crop. A Brooklyn paramedic encloses a patch from her jacket, writing, "Wear this when Congress gets cold." A Marine veteran in Guam simply says, "The Lantern Fund reminded me my service isn't finished." These aren't just compliments, they're commitments. People sign up to tutor refugees online, host film nights to raise micro grants, swap doom scrolling for do scrolling. One librarian creates a crying corner stocked with tissues and international newspapers so patrons can practice global empathy. The ripple that began in a TV studio now breaks over every shoreline if I can reach. A week into cherry blossom season, Jasmine slips out before dawn, phone silent, security detail trailing at a discreet distance. The tidal basin trees wear cotton candy petals that drift across the water like soft-spoken confetti. She recalls Ibrahim Traoré's voice on that first CAF night. "Your voice travels farther than you think." Standing beneath a tree older than statehoods, she opens Serena Langston's letter one more time. For the first time, the ink doesn't ache. It illuminates. Grief, she realizes, isn't just a wound, it's a gateway. When we let sorrow breathe, we create a corridor wide enough for compassion to march through. Jasmine pulls a pen from her pocket and writes on the back of the letter, "Let it grow." She tucks the page between two sturdy branches, not littering, but planting an idea where strangers can stumble upon it and wonder. Back in Oakland, a street artist known only as Quill has painted Jasmine's silhouette beside the mantra "Compassion Liability." The mural's QR code links straight to lanternfund.org. In Chicago, students host a lantern hackathon, building low-bandwidth education apps for conflict zones. Across social feeds, #GriefISnot Unpatriotic charts for 6 consecutive days out trending. Celebrity feuds and playoff brackets, policy wonks notice. A bipartisan cluster quietly drafts the Humanity and Foreign Assistance Act, earmarking trauma-healing dollars right next to munitions budgets. It isn't perfect, but it's a crack-in. The concrete wide enough for lantern light to filter through. And Ibrahim? He records a midnight voice memo from Ouagadougou. Sierra read her poem at assembly. She ended with "your 6 words." The auditorium went silent as if silence could applaud. Jasmine plays it twice, smiles, and forwards it to every doubting colleague with the subject line, "Listen." Maybe you watched the original clip on a crowded train, headphones leaking the single word "children" into commuter chatter. Maybe you're hearing it now for the first time. Either way, the story is no longer Jasmine's alone. It's ours, a living document drafted in tears, edited by courage, published in Action Small and Grand. So here's the closing credo: let it grow. Let empathy sprout in inboxes, in town hall agendas, in late-night group chats that trade sarcasm for sincerity. Every time you refuse numbness, you extend the legacy Sierra and her classmates are busy building with chalk dust fingers. If this journey moved you, if it reminded you that caring across oceans is not just possible but necessary, light up that like button, share this story to amplify its echo, drop your reflections in the comments, and smash subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Of collective courage, grief planted the seed. We choose whether it blossoms.